Hello, welcome back to this video series where we are going to knit the Lauren baby blanket. I've got my pattern booklet, my needles, my yarn, and I'm ready to get started. The yarn we're using here is the Heartland yarn, which is made by Lion Brand. It is a yarn that's compatible with 5mm needles. These circular needles are made by Loops and Threads. They are my favorite circular needles to use. Before you start knitting any pattern, it's always a good idea to knit a sample swatch in stockinette stitch so you can get a rough idea of what your gauge will be for that project. So here's a sample that I've knitted in stockinette stitch. It's a little bit bigger than 4 inches wide and 4 inches in length, and I've used it to see how many stitches will occupy 4 inches by 4 inches. If you're not familiar with what gauge is or why it's important and why we use it, I've got a separate video on that. I'll just link it up here in the top right corner. Okay, so now let's open the booklet and see what we've got here. Usually in a pattern, there will be a little bit of a preamble, just some information that's important to know before you knit the pattern. This pattern has a little bit of a description here that's telling us that it can be knit in 3 different sizes, and it's got the finished size options down here below. The preamble will also tell you the supplies you need to knit the pattern as well as the expected gauge. So now we're going to flip the pattern over and take a look at the directions. The first thing the pattern is telling us to do is to cast on, and then it lists a number of stitches. So you'll notice that there's 1 number, and then in brackets there are 2 numbers. If you remember back at the beginning in the preamble, there's a little direction that says where 3 numbers are given, 1 outside the brackets and 2 within brackets, the first number outside of the brackets is the value that relates to the car seat size. The first number inside the brackets is to the baby size and the second number to the throw size. So if you are making the car seat size blanket, you will look at the number that is outside the brackets. If you're making the baby blanket size, you'll use the first number inside the brackets, and if you're making the throw size, you'll use the second number inside the brackets. I'm making the car seat size blanket in this video, so my first step is to cast on 92 stitches. So right here, I'm making a slip knot, inserting my needle into that first stitch, inserting my second needle through the stitch, wrapping my yarn, pulling the stitch through, and placing it on the needle next to the first stitch. If you need a full video on how to do this type of cast on, I have a video of that in my YouTube channel, and I will link it up here in the top right corner in case you need to refer to it. And so I'm continuing across my needle until I have cast on 92 stitches. Here's a little trick I have for you from a seasoned knitter. I like to use these little stitch markers to help me count my cast on stitches as I go. So I like to use the paperclip kind so you can add them between 2 stitches anytime. And I place them every 25 stitches. That way I can count my 25 stitches, double count them, make sure it's right, and then I only have to count another 25 stitches at a time instead of having to count 92 and risk losing my count and having to start all over again. So here I am just double checking that I do actually have 92 stitches. So I've got 3 paperclip stitch markers there, so I know I've got 75, and then I just need to count 17 more stitches and I'll know for sure that I've got the 92 that I need. And then once you're done, you can just take the stitch markers off. Then we can move to our first step, which is to knit across all rows for a total of 8 rows. So that's all knit stitches, and here we go. A lot of people like to keep a tally of how many rows they've completed, so that's just what I'm doing here. Okay, now it's time to turn the work and start on row number 2, knitting across the entire row again. Okay, now I'm marking that I've completed the second row, and I'm going to keep going 6 more times for a total of 8 rows. I have finished the bottom border of my Lauren baby blanket. So here I have my 8 rows of garter stitch. I've just knit every row, front and back. This is what it looks like. And again, I'm making the car seat size, which is the smallest size. It's about 20 inches wide and will end up being about 24 inches long.